You can start.
Thank you. So, good evening, everybody, and good morning, Captain Dr. Shashi Kumar. We welcome you to this event organized by the Company of Master Mariners of India. And you're going to speak on demystifying the maritime governance at US. So, thanks a lot for accepting our invitation to be here. A little bit about Company of Master Mariners of India. We have been assisting the Director General of Shipping in an advisory capacity. We have been conducting extra masters classes, which had stopped in between, so we have resumed that. We also assist the Director General of Shipping in conducting assisting them with external examiners for mates and masters oral exams. We publish a command journal, which is always available on our website for all our members to see, or even anybody who can log into there. We conduct exit exams for the Board of Examination of Seafarers, for pre-sea training ratings, and for IV vessels. Time to time, we conduct these kind of webinars where we impart knowledge and information to our members. To begin the seminar, a few tips I would like to give. In order not to disturb the flow of the lecture, all the participants will be muted. If you have any questions, please put it up on the chat box. And at the end of the lecture, these questions will be taken up. And please don't forget to put a question mark in front of the question so that we know it's a question. Because what happens, when the person is reading the questions, most of them are comments and not really questions. So if the moment he sees a question mark, he will take it up. So with that, I invite our master, Captain B.K. Jha, to address the gathering. Captain Jha, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Fortunate that Captain Shashi Kumar has agreed to come and give their perspective.
Yes, we can hear you.
Or the USA perspective today.
We can hear you, sir.
Fortunate that Captain Shashi and implement or follow in our system also. Thank you very much, Captain Shashi Kumar. Captain Dr. Professor Shashi Kumar. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say one thing. Recent initiative taken by the Company of Master Mariner is mentoring. We have started from 14th of January and we have got about 70 odd mentors and they have been distributed to mentee each. We hope this program is successful and I invite more mentors to come forward and help the young generation to achieve the target what they feel. Did you see the cricket match yesterday? Youngster can do wonder. They are full of enthusiasm and they can learn everything what they are supposed to do. So let's join hands together with the CMMI and make mentor and mentee program successful. Thank you very much. Let's listen to Captain Shashi Kumar. That's the important part today we have gathered here. Thank you very much. Captain Costa.
Oh, thank you, Captain Jha, for that welcome address. I now request Captain Dr. Suresh Bharadwaj to take over the proceeds of this event. Captain Bharadwaj, sir.
Thank you very much, Captain Pradhan. Thank you very much. Dr. Shashi Kumar, thank you very much for coming in today. What a great day today, actually, to be here. The whole world's eye is there on the USA, and we have you here with us on this day. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first tell you that Dr. Shashi Kumar is firstly a master mariner As you would have known by now, he is the 1974-76 Rajendra batch. He is also an honorary member of the Council of American Master Mariners, CAM, he is presently the Deputy Associate Administrator and the National Coordinator in MARAD, which is the Maritime Administration of USA. And he has been in this position since 2015, which is good 5 years. And of course, with the new regime coming in, I am very sure that he is going to rise much more. Gentlemen, ladies, Dr. Shashi Kumar brings together 4 decades of exceptional maritime industry and academic leadership experience. He is the founding dean of the International Business and Logistics School at the main Maritime Academy, where he still continues to be the professor emeritus. He was then the chief academic officer at the Federal U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, which is at Kings Point, New York. He has a Ph.D. from the University of Wales in Maritime Economics. And as a Fulbright senior specialist assigned to the Republic of Ireland in 2012, he assisted the Irish public-private partners in their research capacity building initiative. Gentlemen, ladies, his signature publication is the annual US Merchant Marine and the World Maritime Review, which is eagerly sought after by most of us. And every year after year, he publishes this. Dr. Kumar has received numerous commendations for outstanding leadership, which includes the US Transport Secretary's Outstanding Achievement Gold Medal. Overwhelming indeed, Dr. Shashi. USA, Dr. Shashi, as we already know, it has its absolutely unique style of functioning. And if you look at the Maritime Administration, MARAD has got everything under 2 heads. One is national security, where you have got your strategic sea lift, and then you've got the economic security, which is about the efficient use of navigable waterways and the ports and competitiveness in international trade. You also got cargo. Actually, I'm quite enamored with this security concept because in India, Dr. Shashi, we suffer from something called sea blindness. We hardly figure in the scheme of things in this place. But I believe if you can tag this security work along with maritime, I guess we're going to get a lot of attention. So be that as it may, Dr. Shashi, we would like you to please give us an overview of the Maritime Administration there. Dr. Shashi, all yours.
Thank you, Captain Bharadwaj. Before I address your question, let me digress a little bit. I'm absolutely honored to be here speaking to you all this morning, to the captains of the industry in India. You are the pillars of the society, and you folks are the drivers of the Indian maritime industry, which is obviously great future, and there's a great role to play for the Indian merchant marine in future years, especially as the Indian economy booms year after year. I know it is a little bit of a setback right now with the virus, but I'm sure there is a lot of room to grow in the Indian merchant marine and Indian commerce moving on board ships. Secondly, I'm also very pleased to be here because several of my classmates and some of my seniors, several of you are there. So it's wonderful seeing all of you after, I don't know how many years now, at least for some of you. Some of you have seen more recently, but vast majority I have not seen since 1976, or thereabouts. Again, you mentioned about my affiliation with the Council of American Master Mariners. We have a relatively smaller group here. the Council of American Master Mariners. It's definitely not as big in size as the
Yes.
Indian Master Mariners organization. But they are fairly active. I'm not that active, but I do receive their notifications and I do participate in some of their meetings. And you also mentioned about my role in Ireland. Ironically, I'm wearing a tie which was given to me by the Honorable Company of Master Mariners in Ireland when I was there, because I had the good fortune to address them when I was spending some time in Ireland. So I have a great deal of respect and admiration for the Council of Master Mariners and what they do, and their role in mentoring the future generation and the future mariners of the society. So it's my pleasure, it's my privilege speaking to you all. You gave an incredibly demanding introduction about me, and I hope I can live up to your expectations and try to address your questions and your comments as best as I can. As far as the title, Demystifying the U.S. Maritime Governance Structure, I don't know if I can do that. It confounds most people in America as to how the governance structure works here. Ironically, once again, with India, for example, you have the Ministry of Shipping, which obviously takes care of shipping activities. Here in this country, there are about 25 plus federal agencies that have a stake in the maritime sector. 25 plus. So before we can do anything, we need to get a buy-in from all those different agencies underneath the executive umbrella. It is a very significant challenge. It's a monumental challenge. So decision-making, policy-making, et cetera, takes a great deal of time. It's not easy to get things done. For example, speaking from the very top, if you look at the two key aspects of shipping, promotion versus regulation, that has been divided in the US for decades. So for example, the US Coast Guard is responsible for the regulatory aspects. Our office, the Maritime Administration, it is responsible for promotion. So all promotional activities fall under our umbrella. We are not regulatory, we are promotional. This structure came into existence in the 1950s. The US governance of the shipping sector itself began in 1916, but it has undergone changes since then. Starting from 1950, they divided the two into regulation versus promotion. But there are other agencies who have a significant role, who have a significant say in what shipping does. I will come to that later, but in general, right now, when you look at shipping, there is the promotional side and the regulatory side. And the way we are structured, there is the US Department of Transportation, which is where my office is. The US Department of Transportation, the headquarters is here in DC, Washington, DC. It's a 9-story building. Each floor is for one mode of transportation. So there is the railways, there is the pipelines, the Federal Aviation Administration, there is the highways. Every mode has got one floor. We, the shipping people, the Maritime Administration, we are the smallest component. So for example, the Department of Transportation has an annual budget of about $100 billion. It's a huge department because there are a lot of responsibilities. The aviation, highways, railways, pipelines, you name it. Every mode of transportation comes under that. Our budget is barely about $1 billion. So we are like a rounding error. We are very small. And in our building itself, there is about, on a typical day, sans COVID and virus and all that, in a normal day, there's about 10,000 people working there. Of those 10,000 people, the people in the Maritime Administration is about 300. So we are a very small division because, unlike railroad and airlines, etc., we are our role is very different. Number one, all the other modes of regulation as well as promotion, everything is within their structure. Whereas within the shipping, it is completely divided. So my point is, shipping governance is done through different agencies of the federal government. Our agency, the Maritime Administration, which came into existence in 1950, we are just 70 years old. We have a clear mission which actually originates from what we call the Merchant Marine Act of 1936. For people in this country, that's the Magna Carta of American shipping. And our mission, as stated in the Merchant Marine Act of 1936, is to foster, to promote, and develop the maritime industry of the United States to meet the nation's economic and national security. So your initial point as to why national security, that's our bread and butter. It comes from our mission. And there is a presidential order that was issued in early 1980s, according to which this is even more defined, that you, the Maritime Administration, shall be responsible for certain aspects of the national security.
Okay.
So that's where the national security aspect comes in. And if you look at our budget of about $1 billion, about 50% of that budget is for national security. So your question may be, so what do you do for national security? Well, so we actually maintain and we are responsible for operating 46 ships, which are on various stages of readiness, either 5 days or 10 days. So the US military, for example, obviously the US wants to be a world player, global player, power play and whatnot. So in order to project their power, their strength, the military depends upon us. All right. So how is that done? Well, there is a branch within the US Navy called Military Sea Lift Command. The US Military Sea Lift Command, the Military Sea Lift Command is a branch within the Navy. It's headed by an admiral. His role is to provide logistic support for the US Navy. Right? But the logistic support provided is just for the Navy. They also need support for the Air Force. They need support for the Army to carry the armaments and tanks and so forth. That's where we come in. So if there is a conflict anywhere in the world, what the US military does is, at any time, they have 15 ships which are pre-positioned. These are ships that are managed, operated by the Military Sea Lift Command.
Okay.
About half of them are in the Indian Ocean, near Diego Garcia. The other half is in the Western Hemisphere, in the Pacific Ocean, near Guam and places like that. So there are 15 ships like that, which the US military can activate anytime. That's their first line of attack in terms of supplying their military forces. The second
reserve fleet. It's called the reserve.
They haven't come to the reserve fleet yet. These
okay.
This is called the pre-positioned fleet.
I see.
15 ships. Now, the second stage is the reserve fleet, which is also known as the Ready Reserve Fleet, or the RRF. So the Ready Reserve Fleet consists of 61 ships. 15 of those ships are maintained by the Military Sea Lift Command. 46 are maintained by us. So there are 46 ships that we maintain, which can be activated by the US military either on a 5-day notice or a 10-day notice. So what we do is we give contract to ship managers who are maintaining these ships on a constant state of readiness. So ordinarily, they are not fully crewed. They do have a smaller number of crew. Their main job is to keep the ship shape and ready for activation. But anytime these ships can be activated as soon as we get the notice from the US military, everything gets rolling, including bringing in more people, activating the ship so she can go to wherever she needs to go, pick up the armaments, pick up whatever it needs to pick up, and be on the go within 5 days. If you don't do it, that goes against us. And so these are all key roles of our national security expectations. So those ships, by the way, these 46 ships that we maintain, they're pretty old. There are, of those 46 ships, I believe the average age now is somewhere like about 45. So there's a significant push now to kind of recapitalize these ships and replace them with newer vessels, new ships. So in fact, that's going on right now. So we are in the process of trying to get rid of some of the older ships and get some of the newer ships. It also makes us, ironically, the biggest owners of steamships in the world. We have about 25 of those steamships within our ready reserve fleet right now, which are kind of ludicrous because we can't even find enough steam engineers to operate those ships sometimes. So those are some of our challenges. So that sort of addresses your basic question. Why do you have a national security role? This is the reason why we have a national security role. And we have people, I mentioned earlier, Maritime Administration has got about 250 to 300 people working in our headquarters. Altogether, nationwide, we have about 800 people employed by the National Maritime Administration. Of these 800 people, about 250 are employed by the Navy to maintain these ships. So we get money from the U.S. Navy, from the U.S. military, to pay and to employ these people and keep these ships shipshape.
Okay, that's about national security, where you have a reserve fleet and strategic lift, as you talked about. You also have something called economic security, and you have some special kind of rules like the cargo preference, which which may be sometimes viewed as against the normal free trade policy. Of course, cabotage is different. Cabotage is with respect to the cargo in the coast, but cargo preference is international.
Right. So, so the thrust of the American policy is, in order to provide this national security, you cannot have ships completely under government ownership, with the government paying for all these ships. The expectation is that there is a commercial fleet which will be there, which can provide the industrial base to support the military needs as well. So that's where the economic security also comes in. Now, this economic security, it's a microcosm that consists of 3 pillars. I think you touched upon a couple of those. So essentially, there are 3 pillars. One is the Maritime Security Program, or what we call the MSP. The other one is the cargo preference. And the third one is the Jones Act. The Jones Act is the cabotage provision. The Jones Act is the provision whereby all cargo movements within contiguous waters and non-contiguous waters from a US state to another state, or from US to Hawaii and Puerto Rico and places like that, must move on US bottoms, crewed by US mariners, and also owned by US corporations or US individuals. So that's the Jones Act. That's no different from cabotage. So that's the cabotage.
Venkat, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself, Venkat.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so these are the cabotage requirements, the Jones Act. Now, what is the MSP? Well, the Maritime Security Program is a program that, earlier years, US had a different kind of policy called ODS, Operating Differential Subsidy, and Construction Differential Subsidy. those were the earlier pillars of the American maritime policy enacted just before the Second World War. All right. The operating differential subsidy was the difference in cost of operating an American ship versus a foreign flag ship would be offset by the US government through the Maritime Administration for certain number of ships operating on certain trade routes, which were considered essential for the US economy and national security. The construction differential subsidy was the difference in constructing a ship in the US versus in a foreign yard would be met again through the US Maritime Administration. So during the reign of the Reagan presidency, so in the early 1980s, 82 to 84 time period. So during that period, what happened was both CDS and the ODS were eliminated. The CDS has not come back, but the ODS, the operating differential subsidy, was, however, replaced by something called the Maritime Security Program. So this is a program whereby we have 60 ships which have military value. Okay, all these 60 ships have a certain military value based on what military wants. These ships receive, right now they're getting about $5 million per year to stay in the US flag. Now these ships are in the international trade. They are not in the domestic trade. They do not benefit from the cabotage provisions, etc.
Okay.
So these 60 ships, every one of these ships have military value, and that's why they are there. That's why they are getting the money. In general, the military has, they have their, based on their analysis, they tell us they need so many cubic feet of shipping capacity. Primarily, their main interest is in ro-ro vessels and those kind of ships, because it's easier for these tanks and these kind of heavy armaments to be driven inside and go to a port where, or go to a place where there are no port infrastructure to unload the cargo and things like that. So certainly there are a number of ro-ro ships. There are a small number of container ships, a couple of tankers, a couple of crane ships, etc. within the MSP program. Now, so that's the second pillar. The third pillar, which kind of supports the American flag ships going internationally, is the cargo preference, which you have touched upon. The cargo preference, again, the rules are very, very clear. I mean, from our perspective, number one, if you are shipping military cargo, 100% of the military cargo must go on US flag ships, which makes sense. I mean, these are sensitive cargoes and it should go on US flag ships. Now, the second part of it is any cargo that is generated by US government. All right. So, for example, food aid and those kind of cargoes, those cargoes, 50% must go on US bottoms. The other 50% can go on foreign flag ships. So there is a cargo reservation requirement or preference requirement that 50% must go on US flag ships, assuming ships are available. Now, if the ship is not available, yes, you have the option not to use the US flag ship.
Right,
so
right.
So these are the three foundational pillars of the US policy making in order to make sure that we have sufficient ships to support the military needs. Without these things, the US will not have the sufficient number of ships. So in other words, the MSP alone is not sufficient to keep the American ships operating in today's operating environment because of the high cost of operating the American ships, because of the cost of employing the American crew members, the cost of maintaining the ships, and so forth.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Captain Shashi, please tell us something about the US Coast Guard. And I think this is also part of Homeland Security. And
Yes.
This is, as you mentioned, this is the law enforcing agency. And I believe they're also qualifying and licensing the mariners too, isn't it?
Yes. So the US Coast Guard was actually in the US Department of Transportation. It used to be in the US Department of Transportation. So the two agencies, one responsible for safety and regulation, the other one responsible for the promotion of the industry, the Maritime Administration. We both were within the US Department of Transportation. And in reality, going back historically, these both were actually part of the US Department of Commerce. So within the Department of Commerce, there was the Coast Guard and the Maritime Administration. And again, this happened in 1982 under Reagan years, and President Reagan was in charge. At that time, there was a decision made to move the transportation people from there into the Department of Transportation. That's when our agency, as well as Coast Guard, we moved from commerce to transportation. So then what happened was when they created the Department of Homeland Security after the 9/11 incidents, etc., they took out Coast Guard from Department of Transportation. They became a component of the Department of Homeland Security. Now, in most countries, okay, say for example, UK, if you look at the equivalent of the Maritime Administration, they're responsible for the education, the training, the licensing, the credentialing, everything. And the Indian Director General of Shipping, again, there are similar roles. Whereas here in the US, because of the unique way we are structured from a policy-making perspective and from a regulatory perspective, the Coast Guard, as the safety plus regulatory agency, they are responsible for providing the licenses to our mariners, to our seafarers. So there is a unit within the US Coast Guard called National Maritime Center. It's located in a place about 60 miles away from where I am seated right now, in a place called Martinsville in West Virginia. That's where they are located. So there is the centralized place from where all the licenses are printed, issued, documented, etc., from that place. So the US Coast Guard is responsible for making sure that every seafarer who is getting the credential from the US Coast Guard meets all the requirements. If it's here in US, they issue international credentials as well as the national credential. So if it's an international credential, it must comply with the STCW requirements and provisions. The national requirements are a little bit different, but obviously somewhat similar. So all those are handled by the US Coast Guard. Now, our office, the Maritime Administration, and my office in particular, is responsible for all the education, training, things like that. But we don't get into the licensing part, which is very different from every other country in the world.
Yes, indeed. That's what brings me to maritime education, and you are the ones who are coordinating all the federal U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, and there are 6 state maritime academies, and I had the opportunity of visiting the Cal Maritime, of course, very impressive indeed, yes. And each one of them have got their own proper training ship which is dedicated to them, and they're actually making voyages. So do tell us something about this training program and the sea time particularly. I believe that you give extra sea time remission for the period spent on training ships. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's all are very valid points. Yes. So we have 6 state maritime academies and the Federal Merchant Marine Academy. The role of the federal government in maritime education and training in this country, it began once again with the Merchant Marine Act of 1936. Remember, I said earlier, the Merchant Marine Act of 1936 is really the Magna Carta of American shipping. Everything, all the positive things that really happened in the American shipping industry began with the foundation laid in the Merchant Marine Act of 1936. And the timing was so perfect because it really helped America to be a major player during the World War II, because this nation was building like a ship every couple of days during those years, in order to meet the demands of World War II. So same way, just like shipbuilding, just like all the other things that happened, all the good things that happened for American shipping, the educational sector also got a big boost from the Merchant Marine Act of 1936, which makes it very obvious that the federal government must support the training of mariners, seafarers, etc. So accordingly, states as well as federal government took keen initiative in setting up mariner, seafarer education opportunities. At the federal level, the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy was set up at Kings Point, New York. It's a beautiful place and overlooking the Long Island Sound. It's a federal academy, which means we operate it directly. It's ours. And I mean, everybody has to be, anybody who's working there must be a US citizen. All the students are US citizens. And to be a student there, you have to be nominated by a congressman or a senator. And there's a very complicated process of getting in there. And they're all outstanding students. They're all like, cream of the crop. I mean, these are some of the top students nationwide, because once they're selected, everything is completely free for them. It's just like going to the Naval Academy or the Air Force Academy, etc. So that's the advantage of going to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Essentially, they're getting something like the equivalent of a $300,000 education for free once they get in. But they have an obligation to serve. Once they graduate, they have to serve in the U.S. Merchant Marine for 5 years to meet their service obligation. So every student going to U.S. Merchant Marine Academy has that obligation. Typically, they have a student body of around 1,000 midshipmen. We call them midshipmen. There are 1,000 midshipmen at the academy enrolled. Each year, they're graduating somewhere close to 250 students. And of these 250 students, about somewhere between 25 and 40% of the graduating students of U.S. Merchant Marine Academy will join one of the military branches. They do join one of these military branches. So they have the option of joining, and this is the unique part. I mean, if you go to U.S. Naval Academy, you have to join the Navy. If you go to West Point, the Army, you have to join the Army. If you go to the Air Force Academy, you have to join the Air Force. Whereas the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, if you join there, if you graduate from there, you can join any branch of the military. That's why it is very attractive for many of these young people to join this academy, because they may not be sure where they want to go after 4 years. But after spending 4 years at U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, they might decide, yeah, I want to join the Navy or the Air Force or whatever. So about somewhere between 25 and 40% will join the military on active duty. The other 60 to 75%, what they do is they join the Merchant Navy or the Merchant Marine, as we call it in this country. But every one of those 60% of the graduates, they all have military reserve commission. They need to go on reserve duty every year for the next 8 years. And they can be activated should there be a need by the US military at any time. So yes, they get a free education for 4 years, but there are certain service obligations that they have to meet. So that's the federal academy perspective. Now let me go on to the state academies. So there are 6 state academies: Maine, Massachusetts, New York, Texas, California, and Michigan. So all these academies came into existence, again, based on the support provided by the Merchant Marine Act of 1936. However, there was a predecessor, the New York Academy, the SUNY Maritime College, used to be the New York Maritime Academy at one point. That actually originated in the 1850s. They received an old ship from the U.S. Navy at that time, and the city of New York, set it up as an institution for the riffraff, the undisciplined youth of New York, so they can go there and get educated. That's, to build discipline into them, to make them better citizens and so forth. That's how it began in the mid 1800s. It persisted, and obviously after the Merchant Marine Act of 1936, they became much stronger with more support. Likewise, there was an academy that was started in Massachusetts. That's the Massachusetts Maritime Academy near Cape Cod. And they also have been in business since 1875 or so. First began as a small maritime program and then got a lot of support after the Merchant Marine Act of 1936. So we have 6 maritime academies at this point. Every one of them, at one point, they were all purely maritime academies. They just offered the licensing programs, deck and engine. Starting from the 1980s, all these academies are diversified, and now they are all providing other programs as well. So for example, Maine Maritime Academy, which was the first one actually, and I'm proud to have been associated with that. Maine Maritime Academy was the first academy in this country which diversified, went from a pure licensing program to programs that right now include international business and logistics, marine science, small vessel operations, and I'm sure they have other programs as well at this point. And similar model has been followed by every other academy. They all have other programs. But still, even at this point, I would say for all these academies, about 50% of their student base are students enrolled in the deck and engine US Coast Guard licensing programs. Now, one of the requirements as per the US law is that we, the Maritime Administration, we are responsible for supporting them. So we provide them a lot of assistance. We provide them money, for example. Each of the academies are receiving $1 million every year from us to support their mariner education programs. So all 6 of the academies. Now, what else do we give? The biggest thing that we give them is the training ship. The training ship, every academy has got a training ship that they use for providing sea time for their cadets. Until now, all these training ships were, old Navy ships or converted cargo ships that were used by the military Sea Lift Command that came under our possession, etc. Starting from 2008, we have been making a case that these ships are getting too old, we need to change them. So for example, the oldest training ship that we have right now is the training ship used by SUNY Maritime College, which is 56, 57 years old. All right. So the second oldest is the one that's used by Massachusetts Maritime Academy, which is about 51 years old. So every one of these training ships are getting very old. And, when these ships go out to sea, for example, the SUNY ship and the Mass Maritime training ship, those ships carry more than 600 cadets on board. When they are at sea, it is kind of, we are concerned. There is a certain, there are a few sleepless nights that we have when these ships are at sea. So we've been making a case that it's not good. We need to do something about it before something unforeseen happens. At last, we have been successful in terms of convincing the Congress and the US administration that these ships have to be replaced. And we have received approval from the federal government to replace these training ships. So for the first time in the entire history of the US maritime policy making, we are going to build purpose-built training ships. We are building 5 of those for 5 of the academies. The 6th Academy, Great Lakes Maritime Academy, is in the Great Lakes. They have a smaller number of students. They only have about 200 students. And those students, when they graduate, they serve in the Great Lakes region, so they don't need the big ship. And being freshwater, their ship stays for a longer time. So the ship that they have right now, the state of Michigan, is that ship is going to be there for another, maybe for 25 years more. So we are not going to build one for them right now. All the other academies are going to get a new training ship, starting with the State University of New York Maritime College, who will get their first ship in 2023. We have received, or at this point, we are in various stages of receiving up to $1.5 billion for building those 5 training ships.
So does the sea time, if they spend about, I guess they spend about 4 months on board and you give them 6 months of sea time, that's right?
Yes, so the American academies have an interesting model. The state maritime academies are required, by the way they're structured, their sea-year training model is based on earning bulk of their sea time on board their training ships. And they have been able to convince the US Coast Guard that based on what they do on the training ship, 1 day on the training ship is equivalent to 1.5 days on a commercial ship. So what happens is a typical summer training cruise on board one of these ships, is 60 days during the summer months. They typically leave just after their graduation, mid-May, and then comes back in sometime in July or something. So they spend 60 days. For those 60 days, they're getting 90 days of sea time. And as for STCW requirements, they need 360 days per year. So they make a summer training cruise, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and then pick up additional sea time from other activities. That's the way they earn their 360 days of sea time. The U.S. Merchant Marine Academy they have a different model. That's the only academy that has a different model of sea time accumulation. Their model is based on earning the sea time from commercial ships. They do not have a training ship that goes across the ocean like the other maritime academies. That's their model, and they strongly believe in that model. I believe there is value in both models. Having been at Rajendra and been there on that training ship, as well as having worked on commercial ships as a cadet, I can vouch for that fact. There is value in both. Whether you are working on a training ship or on a commercial ship as a cadet, you have opportunities to learn. So the Kings Point model, as it is known, is to earn bulk of the sea time on commercial ships. And they have a smaller training ship, the Kings Pointer. They only use that. It's very easy to use. It used to be a rocket launch recovery ship under NASA once upon a time. When NASA stopped their space program, it was given to us, and we are using that right now at Kings Point. And it's very easy to take that ship out. It has got all sorts of thrusters and things like that. So it's good for ship handling. So in order to learn ship handling, it's a great ship. Within 1 hour, I can take the ship out from the pier. It can be in the Long Island Sound, and the cadets can get real hands-on exposure. So they use that for that purpose, but not really for long distance sailing and provide, keep watches and things like that.
Thank you so much. Just one last question. Before, I'm sure there are a lot of questions coming from the audience as well. But looking at the NTSB, the National Transport Safety Board, that's also another fantastic agency, totally independent, I guess, isn't it? Which comes out with some excellent accident investigation reports and the root causes. And frankly, that's the bane of our industry, Dr. Shashi. Shipping is not rocket science. It's just we consciously we are not addressing the root causes. We're just fighting symptoms, and we continue to be at the bottom of the safety rung. And do tell us something about this National Transport Safety Board.
Yes. The NTSB, as you mentioned, is an independent agency. They are not connected with any mode of transportation. They are completely separate. It's non-political. And they have an outstanding reputation, as you mentioned, not only in the US, but overseas as well. So within the NTSB, there is a board. The board is appointed by the president. And then underneath the board, there are specialists in each mode of transportation, be that airlines, be that railroads, highways, shipping, you name it. So the people who work in the shipping side, who do the investigation, they are obviously former mariners with significant experience, and they are the leaders of that. So if there is a major shipping disaster like the El Faro, for example, there was major investigation that they conducted, and they shared the results with everybody so that you learn from those mistakes, so that it never happens again. So it's an outstanding group. They do a great job. We all respect them, and they take their role very seriously. And the fascinating thing about NTSB is that, for example, after the El Faro incident, once they had the results, once they did their study, they went around, they went to every one of the Maritime Academies and told the students, this is what happened on the ship. You shouldn't do things this way. These are the changes that you should make. So they are very, very resourceful in doing things like that, informing the public, engaging the public, communicating, and spreading the word for better safety in future years. So that's to be certainly, that's very commendable.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shashi. I think I'm running out of time. I would like to hand over now to our Secretary General of CMI, Captain Bhasin, and he's monitoring the chat box, and he'll definitely have some questions from the audience. Captain, they're all yours.
Thank you, Captain Bhardwaj.
Thank you, Captain Bhardwaj, sir. It was pleasure listening to you, Captain Shashi, sir. The comments we are getting on chat, you are just speaking contemporary without any slides and the bundle of information. It is really wonderful hearing you. And I have a few questions, sir. Some questions have come to me one-to-one, and some of the questions which have come to me to everyone. So I'll start with few questions, sir, for you. The first question is from Captain Shiv Halbe. He says, do the students who graduate from the state academies, are they required to serve US flag compulsory?
Okay, so thank you, Captain Bhasin, and thank you, Captain Halbe. So the students who graduate from US State Maritime Academies, by the way, I have about 1,000 students graduating with either the third mate deck or the third engineer license every year. So we have about 1,000 of those. As I mentioned earlier, about 250 of them come from the US Merchant Marine Academy. The other 750 or 70 to 75% come from the state maritime academies. Now, within the state maritime academies, we have a program called Student Incentive Program. This is a program whereby these students can get some money from us, from our office. So if you take that money, it will offset your cost of attending the State Maritime Academy. Right now, we can pay up to $32,000 for a student who is accepting that money. I can issue as many as 75 such payments every year. So those students who have accepted the money from us, all right, that $32,000, those students have an obligation to serve US flag ships. The other students, the remaining 700 plus or minus students who are graduating from state maritime academies, who paid the tuition with their own money, they can go wherever they want. They can do whatever they want. They have no obligation unless they have taken money from somewhere else. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have quite a few questions. I will move on to the next. That is from Captain Sudhir Subedar. He says, how does USA Sea Time comply with STCW requirement of ordinary trading ship criteria?
When you say ordinary trading criteria, I assume you're talking about home trade. Is that what it is? I'm not familiar with the term. If I can get a little clarity, that will help.
I think he meant ordinary trading means well, maybe a foreign going. That's what he says. Or maybe
Okay.
really it is not
Yeah,
specified
okay.
by Captain Subedar.
I guess worldwide trading.
Worldwide.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
worldwide.
if you are on a regular ship, regular cargo ship, 1 day on the ship is 1 day for sea time. There is no multiplier. You get exactly the number of days you work on the ship.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next question is from Mr. Gaurav Rana. He says, what are the courses that qualified mariner holding COC as an engineer or deck officer can do, and will they help the mariner to settle ashore in USA? I think he's looking up to you.
Well, I mean that's a very difficult question for me to answer, that because it all depends from individual to individual. In general, students are pursuing courses in areas of their interest, be that in management, be that in technology side. There are a number of courses offered by US colleges and universities. How many of them will lead to a job in the US? That's very unpredictable because of the market conditions. Just like everywhere else, it's driven by what's happening in the market. I mean, in terms of jobs in the shipping sector itself, there aren't too many jobs because we have a very small shipping sector here. I think at this point, the number of big ships operated by us in the US is only around 200 ships. It's very small compared to, major ship owning nations. So the number of direct shipping related jobs are small, but obviously every major shipping company is sending their ship here because we are still one of the major importers and exporters, although China is rapidly overtaking US in most of these areas.
Thank you, sir. Now I have a question from Captain Yoshavardhan Sharma. He says, just 1 second, sir. Okay, sir. The Jones Act also required the vessel to be built in the US, not just US flagged. Is that provision still applicable in light of the decline of the shipbuilding industry in the US?
Yes, it is. It is very applicable in the US. It has been a sore point. There is a lot of opposition to the build US requirement. There is typically almost every week I read articles in the trade journals about why we should continue doing it. The main reason why the US is doing that is because the US believes that it's important for this nation to have that industrial shipbuilding capacity. Again, that's not because they want to build a lot of commercial ships, because we have never built more than maybe 3 or 4 ships a year. You're not going to build a lot of shipbuilding strength by building 3 or 4 ships a year. The reason why they want to do it is because they want to make sure that shipbuilding capabilities here in this nation for military purposes. We do build in this country all kinds of Navy ships. And to build that, you need to have that manpower, you need to have that skill set. So to build that, to maintain that industrial base, they strongly believe that this nation must have built US requirement. That's why it is still there. And there is strong support for that, not only from the maritime industry, but also from the military as well as the US Congress.
Sir, the next question is from Captain Ambar Borkar. He says, for the ships calling at US ports, do you have any specific advice or recommendation with respect to the safety issues or pollution prevention or on regulatory regime? It's a very open-ended question, I accept. It's like a whole US Coast Guard checklist, I would say. But anyway, let's see what is your views.
Captain Borkar is my classmate, so he's my Rajendra 74, 76 guy. So he probably wants to poke fun at me, but essentially just comply with the Coast Guard document. Whatever Coast Guard says, just go by that. And they're pretty strict, by the way. If you don't meet their requirements, they're very punitive. So be careful with all their rules and regulations.
I guess all of us have experienced it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
The next question is again from Captain Sudhir Subedar. Where does MARD come in for seaside emergency? I don't know what for seaside emergency. How does MARD come in?
Seaside emergency. I assume if there is some emergency at sea, what do you do? Again, regulations, safety. It's the bailiwick of the U.S. Coast Guard. They are responsible for coordinating those kind of operations. Our role as the U.S. Maritime Administration, our role will be to make sure that ships in the area are aware of these kind of incidents. We send safety bulletins. So we might warn ships in the vicinity that, there is a problem there, you should go and help them, and so on and so forth. And then what happens is, assuming that all these operations are over, we will make sure that the ship and its crew members get appropriate recognition, medals, awards, and so forth. That will be our role in such activities.
Thank you, sir. Few more questions. I have not much time. I will like to go quickly. Captain Susaria Srinivas, he asks, how does the U.S. Maritime and Indian Maritime Administration can cooperate? How the U.S. Maritime Administration can help Indian companies, and what are the requirements and whom to contact?
Well, so based on my experience working here in the federal government, I can tell you that most of these coordinations will happen at the State Department level. So, for example, the collaborations will start between, or should start between, the U.S. Department of State and in India, the Foreign Ministry. And these ministries,
Malhotra ji, just mute yourself, please.
So these ministries will bring in the responsible operating administration. So the U.S. State Department, when they receive a request for collaboration or support through the State Department, it will come to us. Likewise, I'm assuming that the Foreign Ministry in India will engage the Shipping Ministry or DG Shipping or whoever is responsible from the Indian side. And that's where the negotiations take place. I know that the Indian Transport Minister was here, I think about 4 years ago. I'm not sure whether it led to anything. I don't know.
Right, sir. Thank you. The next question is from Captain Halbe again. Which organization monitors and regulates intercoastal waterways? I'm sure he means in US intercoastal waterways.
Yeah. Again, the regulation and safety is always Coast Guard. They are responsible for everything. Now, in terms of the operational safety within the inland waterways, for example, like maintaining the locks and dams and things like that, that will be the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They're responsible for dredging, maintaining the navigable waterways. Those kind of things will be the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. But if there is a collision, if there's a damage, if there's an accident, Coast Guard will always step in.
Thank you, sir. This will be the last question I'm taking because I'm already out of the time. From Dr. K. A. Simon, he asks, do they have postgraduate programs in nautical as well as engineering subjects in the Maritime Academies?
Not all Maritime Academies. Some Maritime Academies have got postgraduate programs. Some of them are completely online. You don't even have to be here. So there are programs available. You can check the website of these Maritime Academies. They all provide such programs. Yes.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry at the other thing, but I'm not able to go through more. However, sir, I just have some comments which came here. I want to read out. Captain Shashi Kumar and Ph.D. Master Mariner was in Maini Maritime Academy, state of Maini in 1987 as a faculty when I was doing my master's maritime management. After having done his master's a year or two earlier from Maini Maritime, he taught us economics. That is from Captain Likhari. He very proudly put this comment for you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Cap.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I will hand it over back to Captain Pradhan. It was a lovely interacting with you, sir. Good information sharing. Some of the people have put a remark. They wanted to know your emails and contact. So that we'll get back to you later on. Captain Pradhan, all
Thank you.
yours. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Captain Basin. Appreciate you've conducted the session very well, the question answer session especially. Captain Shashi, thank you for this interaction with us. And just a query, as CMMI, being a organization of a group of captains from the Indian Maritime Fraternity, is there any scope of setting up some training or some sort of collaborative courses, some sort of understanding between US and India? We would like to take it up as CMMI. Maybe not the administration per se, but at least the Association of Master Mariners in the US. Maybe we can have some sort of collaboration and start some vocational training or something like that. Will that be possible?
I'm certain that if you speak with the Council of American Master Mariners camp over here, that's probably the best avenue. And I'm more than happy to approach camp and tell them that, we had this discussion and you are interested in pursuing some sort of opportunities like this, because the camp here has a number of American Master Mariners who are teaching at the various Maritime Academies and other institutions. And many of them have a lot of experience in working internationally and so forth. So I can see them being, I would see that there is an opportunity for collaboration given the size of the Indian market, definitely, and also the reputation, So I would say there are possibilities. Again, I don't want to speak for them because I don't have the authority, but I can certainly let them know.
Thank you. Thank you
sorry,
very much.
I just want to come back. I apologize. Actually, I got mixed up. One question I missed. It got mixed up between the Yashwardhan Sharma and Achyutan. So I need permission to ask one last question. That is from Captain Ajay Achyutan. He says, Captain Shashi, you enthrall us. Being an Indian, what is your recommendation for reviving tonnage in India? And this is the last question, sir. I'm sorry, I missed it. Apologies to Captain Ajay Achyutan.
I don't know if I am competent to answer that question because because we have the same problem in this country. So what we are doing is we are trying to find requirements which would advocate the need for US flagships. I would say that India, being where it is right now, and with the emergence of China and the local scenario in the Indian Ocean, going back to one of the earlier questions from Captain Bharadwaj, there's a lot of opportunity for bringing in the national security element within the Indian context and making a case. The advocacy for a stronger US merchant shipping fleet presence, because what is China doing, for example? How are they exercising their superiority? It is primarily through their maritime strategy. Look at their all the strategies that they're pursuing all over the world. They're literally conquering the world through the commercial strategy, and India needs to follow up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Captain Pradhan. All yours.
Thank you very much again,
Thank you, Shashi.
Captain Basin. And I now would like to summarize this whole event. And to do this, the honors of summarizing the event, we have none other than Captain Sagi. Who doesn't know Captain Sagi? The ex-nautical advisor to the Government of India. He is also ex-trustee of the JNPT, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, and the Mumbai Port Trust, as well as Kandla Port Trust. He led an Indian delegation to Maritime Safety Committee of International Maritime Organization, the IMO, and the International Oil Pollution Compensation, that is IOPC. During his tenure, he has made history at that time for implementation of GMDSS and ISPS. So that's Captain Sagi. And after his superannuation, he worked as a director of Narottam Moraji Institute of Shipping, where suddenly the NMIMS became so visible to the industry, thanks to Captain Sagi's efforts. So with that, friends, I present to you Captain Sagi, who's going to summarize this event. Captain Sagi, sir.
Thank you, Captain Pradhan. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it was a brilliant expose and a very articulate presentation by Captain Shashi. And I don't think there is much left for me to say after what he has said and so eloquently. And whatever was left to be clarified, the questions asked by very learned audiences given much more clarification. But since I have been given this task, I must add a few points to summarize what Dr. Shashi Kumar has mentioned. And what really struck me is quite distinguished from the way we perceive maritime administration in India. And one we have discussed quite in detail is that the whole objective of building the maritime fleet, maritime administration, is the economic as well as national security. That is the thrust of the whole objective in US. Second thing is that, which you mentioned, is that it's not only just a lip service, it's actually hands-on practical thing. The ships are available 24/7 across the world, and when the time comes, those ships can actually be activated and put into service. And that's really very, very encouraging. And then we have one thing very important he mentioned is that there are two distinguished different organizations. One is for development and one is for regulation. And I think that's very progressive, because we get mixed up, and then there are sometimes there can be conflicting interest. Sometimes the development wants to go very fast, and if the same agency is doing the regulation, then there are no checks and balances. But if you have two different agencies, I think that works very well. So that's very progressive. There's a lot to learn from our country in that aspect. Similarly, he also mentioned about the investigation agencies being completely autonomous. That is almost in line with what IMO Casualty Code. So again, we have yet to achieve that objective. I mean, it can happen that an officer which is certified by one of the departmental officer meets a casualty investigation, and the same officer or one of his subordinate may be doing the casualty investigation or giving a judgment on the rules made by their own department. Now that it doesn't work, then we cannot improve like that. So having an autonomous body for investigation is again a brilliant idea, and they perhaps did it much before the IMO Casualty Code came into existence. Perhaps the IMO learned from the US and followed that. Also, it's very heartening to see that they support the training in a big way, both at the federal as well as the state level. And it's very fair that those who are trained by the state support, they have certain obligation to work on the work with the state. There's some obligation, and that's completely fair. And one thing very interesting I found is that some of the cadets who are doing training in the state academies, they have option to go maybe to any other branch of could be Navy, could be Air Force, could be anything else. That's really opens the big wide world for them. And that, as Captain Shashi Kumar mentioned very clearly, that's a big attraction for people, that they will not be bound or limited to explore options, career options only in the merchant navy. And I must thank CMI, and I must thank all those who participated, and especially, of course, Dr. Captain Shashi Kumar for taking time off to share his experiences, to share, giving us an in-depth knowledge of how the American Maritime Administration works. It's really been an extremely enlightening experience. Thank you very much, Captain Pradhan, for giving me this opportunity. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Sagi. Thanks a lot for your expert comments on this subject. And with that, we come to the end of this session. And to propose a formal vote of thanks, I invite our CEO, Captain Shashi Kumar. His name is also Shashi Kumar, but he's Sasi, S-A-S-I, Shashi Kumar. So, Captain Shashi Kumar, over to you.
Thank you, Captain Pradhan. Honorable Master, Captain B.K. Jha, CMMI office bearers, respected wardens, senior CMMI members, members of the shipping fraternity, and all the participants. It's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. I would like to specially thank Dr. Shashi for participating in today's seminar and giving us insight into the maritime governance of USA. Sir, you are amazing. And like my classmate Ajay puts in, enthralling session, sir. I would like to thank Dr. S. Bharadwaj, CMI Warden, for introducing the eminent speaker and also moderating the discussion very in his usual flair of expertise. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Captain M.M. Sagi for the excellent summary of the webinar today. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank the media for their extensively covering the event for today. Marix, Seajob, Bandarkar, Shipping News, Sailor Today, Sagar Sandesh, and Maritime Destination. Special thanks to Captain Nange for always, supporting us with Sailor Today YouTube. As no program can be more successful with a single person, I extend my big thanks to Master CMI for his encouragement and support and enthusiasm. Captain Pradhan for welcoming the participants and conceptualizing the webinar. Captain MP Basin, Secretary General, also the Chairman of MASA, for his usual flair, smiling away in the Q&A. It really makes our session great. And his meticulous planning of the webinar. Office staff, Sudhir for his support, and Mr. Dhyanchand for the Zoom support. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants without whom the webinar would not have been possible. Thank you all.
Thank you, Captain Shashi Kumar. And now I would like to throw this session open for informal interaction. So anybody can just, raise his comment or whatever he wants to say. So you all can unmute yourself and you're free to speak. We'll have this session for about 10 minutes before that, and then we'll close. At 20:30, we will close.
Shashi, have you been vaccinated with COVID?
There are millions before me. So.
Okay.
The Captain Shashi Kumar is sitting now in Washington, and all the spotlight of the world is on Washington today. They are going to have a new president of US.
Yes, we are anxiously looking forward to it. Yes.
Yeah, I guess it's just a couple of hours to go.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Trump has already left White House, and now
I think the events have already started, isn't it?
yeah.
Yes.
The program has already started as we are here in this seminar.
Right. I mean, this is as you know, it's a very unusual way of transitioning. We have not seen something like this before, with people being replaced by flags and other mementos. So this is a very different way of transitioning power.
I wonder if the ship captain refused to hand over, and take over. So,
This Biden government has a lot of preference for Indians, Dr. Shashi, and we would like to see you rising up and up more.
Well, yeah, I mean, I see that there are, a good number of very well qualified Indians who have been recognized at some very senior level positions. Yeah, that's very good.
Yes, nice to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of optimism. We hope, I mean, given where we are right now, we can only go up, we can't go down.
Captain Shashi,
Yes.
I have a question. This is Captain Master of Ceremony. I was wondering, you have a number of mastermind, Indian mastermind in the USA.
There's somebody.
Can we form a chapter in the USA of the company of mastermind there?
I couldn't hear the question. Can you repeat that?
My question was, we have a number of mastermind, Indian mastermind in USA. If I know myself, it's about 40, 50 people are there. That's only I know. There may be many more. Can it be possible to open the chapter of company of mastermind in USA?
I don't know. I mean, I know that here in the US, they have something called Samudra Club. The Samudra Club includes not just master mariners, but, everybody, anyone who has been to the sea. So engineers, deck officers, everybody is part of that. Can you open up a chapter? I assume you can. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. But you need to have people who are going to take interest in doing that. That's going to be the challenge.
Yes.
Okay.
Because not all masters are members of CAM. CAM is mostly American master mariners, but there are a lot of Indians who are there settled, even master mariners. So
Yeah.
there could be some opportunity for somebody to take some good interest there and start a branch there. Because we have already one in Dubai and Singapore. And
Yeah, I mean, you should reach out to some of the people that and you're right, there are quite a few Indian master mariners, and obviously they are all congregated in major port cities, like New York and Houston. There are a lot of Indian masters in the Houston area, and I'm sure there are some in California area, in Seattle and those kind of places. So, I mean, if you would reach out to some of them personally, I think that's probably the best way to do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right, Kostov? So,
Yes, so with that, we can close the session. And with a final thanks to Captain Shashi Kumar. Thank you very much. And with that, we will end this today's webinar organized by the Company of Master Mariners of India. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you again. And
Thank
thank
you.
you, sir, for inviting me, and my pleasure, my privilege.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.